Good day, virtuous woman, and welcome to Tuesday Talks. My name is Vanessa Rios, and I am a licensed minister of the Assemblies of God, as well as a licensed professional counselor and owner of Freedom Journey Mental Health Counseling, PLLC. Today, I would love to share with you on the story of Ruth, as I reread it recently, and just remembered some of the promises that God has set before us. The book of Ruth opens up with Naomi and her husband Elimelech escaping to Moab with her two sons, escaping from a famine that was caused by judgment of God's people on God's people. As they run towards Moab, soon after we see that Naomi loses her husband Elimelech. And so she depends on her sons, her two sons, to continue on the family name. The two women that they had married were Moabite, but after 10 years, neither of them had given birth or heard the cries of a baby, and soon they too die. In her grief and in her sadness, Naomi renames herself Mara, which means bitterness. Her original name, Naomi, meant delightfulness and pleasantness. But in this grief, she had changed her identity to what was totally opposite that. She decides to go back home alone, go back home to the place of her fathers, empty-handed, without family, without sons, and without legacy. She decides to go back home to the God of her fathers. And so as she decides to leave her two daughters, Ruth makes a covenant, a pact with her, where she decides to follow her into this new nation, into her going back home, and to trust the God of her fathers, Naomi's fathers. So the two travel back home. As you read the book of Ruth, you don't hear God's audible voice. You don't see that he speaks to prophets. But we know through the practices that there is a foreshadowing of God. He is in everything that they do. And so as they go back home, Naomi redresses herself with the traditions of her fathers. And she gives instructions to Ruth as to how she should be, as to what she should do, as to the practices that she should keep as a woman, an Israelite woman, as if she were her own daughter. As she realigns herself with the identity of her people, she's also able to realign herself with the identity of promise. And we soon see that in Ruth obeying the practices of her mother-in-law, she's able to redeem the legacy of Naomi's family. She's able to allow Naomi to refine herself, renew her identity in God. And we all know the story that Ruth finds her Boaz. And through Boaz, she and Boaz has a son who was eventually the grandfather of our great David. So what do I mean to say by reminding us of this story? I don't know what 2025 was like for you. There may have been lots of loss, lots of grief. But in identifying yourself, what we need to do is go back and realign ourselves with the identity that God has set for us. The identity as people of God is for a future and a hope. The promises of God are always before us, and his desire for us is to live a life, and a life of abundance, to live a life of success, to live a life in him, and to find our identity in him. There is a peace that surpasses all understanding, where he gives us so much more than we deserve. So allow 2026 to be your year of realignment and fresh blessing. God bless.